The ocean floor has a way of swallowing history and keeping its secrets. For divers Mark Reynolds and Sarah Holt, that was exactly what drew them to the deep Pacific. The two weren't thrill seekers. They were patient, methodical explorers, historians who used tanks and lights instead of books and brushes. That morning, their sonar had picked up a strange metallic signature nearly 160 feet below the surface. The readings were faint but distinct, something large, hollow, and symmetrical. A wreck. They descended slowly through the blue-gray layers of water, beams of light slicing through the glue. Then, out of the dark, it appeared the unmistakable silhouette of a C-47 Skytrain, a World War II transport aircraft lying on its belly like a sleeping giant. Its tail was twisted, wings fractured, but the body of the plane remained largely intact. Mark's voice crackled through the radio. "It's American. Serial numbers visible, 1944 issue." The two divers exchanged a look through their visors. This aircraft wasn't on any recorded crash map. It shouldn't have been here. As they hovered near the fuselage, Sarah's flashlight revealed something chilling: rows of bullet holes tracing a perfect line along the cockpit. Precise, surgical. The pattern of a fighter's burst, fired deliberately. Their oxygen was already halfway down, but curiosity overcame caution. They both knew leaving now meant the mystery would sink back into silence, maybe forever. Mark motioned toward the hatch. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. Together, they slipped through the corroded doorway and entered the dark spine of the wreck. Inside, everything was frozen in time. Rusted levers, fragments of parachute fabric, and scattered dog tags lay where they had fallen 8 decades earlier. The air tanks hissed faintly as they drifted through the narrow corridor. Then, near the cockpit, Sarah froze. Her light caught a shape: the remains of a man, still strapped into the pilot's seat. His bones were brittle, uniform still faintly visible beneath the coral in decay. A small American flag patch clung stubbornly to his sleeve. Mark's breathing quickened. "Pilot's still here," he whispered. They documented what they could, but something else caught Sarah's eye. In the rear cargo bay, bolted firmly to the floor, was a steel container. It didn't belong. Its reinforced design screamed secrecy, not supply. No military cargo manifest would have included anything like it. They approached slowly. The box was covered in corrosion, sealed tight by decades of salt and pressure. Their gauges beeped, oxygen running low. 5 minutes, Mark said. Sarah gripped the edge of the crate, her gloved hands trembling as she wedged her dive knife under the latch. It wouldn't budge. Mark joined in, using a pry bar they'd brought for recovery work. The metal shrieked a haunting sound that echoed through the dead aircraft. Finally, the latch gave way. A rush of trapped air bubbled out, and the lid creaked open. Inside was a lead-lined cylinder, perfectly preserved, too clean, too deliberate. Sarah's voice came over the radio, breathless. "This isn't supplies. It's something classified." Their oxygen alarms blared, forcing them to retreat, but before ascending, Mark took one last look at the container. A stenciled word barely visible beneath the rust read, "Confidential. Eyes only." They resurfaced, gasping, the afternoon sun blinding after the depths. Neither spoke for a while. They didn't know it yet, but what they had just uncovered was about to reopen a mystery buried since the Second World War, one that had taken countless lives and nearly rewritten the course of history. Back on the surface, Mark and Sarah sent their footage and coordinates to naval authorities. Within 48 hours, the site was under military jurisdiction. Ships surrounded the area, and a recovery team descended to bring the wreck and its mysterious cargo up from the deep. At first, officials assumed it was a routine discovery, another downed aircraft from the Pacific campaign. But once the cargo bay was opened on deck, the atmosphere shifted. The steel container, still sealed and lined with lead, carried markings unfamiliar even to the historians present. It wasn't part of any known mission log. When the lid was lifted, everyone leaned in. Inside lay the same lead cylinder Mark and Sarah had found, but now, in the light of day, its etchings became visible. Strings of numbers, military ciphers, and a faint engraving that read, "Project Nightfall." The cylinder was carefully transported to a naval intelligence lab where forensic experts and historians worked side by side. Inside, they discovered a canister of microfilm reels, miraculously intact despite 80 years underwater. As the first reel was projected, silence filled the room. The microfilm contained Allied battle plans, encrypted communications, and personnel files marked top secret. But deeper in, the sequence lay something more disturbing, a personnel record tied to the pilot himself. His name was Major William Ashcroft, an intelligence officer who had vanished in 1945 during a classified reconnaissance flight. Officially, his aircraft had been lost at sea, but the documents told another story. Ashcroft hadn't just been an intelligence officer. He was a double agent, embedded deep within Allied command. For years, he had passed vital information to the Axis submarine routes, invasion timetables, code fragments. The damage his betrayal caused was catastrophic, though history had never known his name. Yet the final pages of the microfilm revealed something extraordinary, a final message dictated by Ashcroft himself, recorded days before his disappearance. His voice, calm but weary, confessed everything: the espionage, the deception, and finally, the mission that would end his life. They promised extraction. Instead, they sent the order. The coordinates were never for pickup, they were for execution. The pattern of bullet holes Mark and Sarah had seen around the cockpit now made sense. The C-47 hadn't been shot down by enemy fire, it had been silenced by friendly planes, ordered to eliminate Ashcroft once he completed his final handoff. Historians pieced the timeline together. After transmitting stolen intelligence, Ashcroft had attempted to flee toward a remote rendezvous point. His handlers intercepted him, ensuring his betrayal died with him buried under miles of ocean. The discovery made international headlines, reopening one of World War II's coldest cases. Mark and Sarah watched from afar as the wreckage they'd found became the centerpiece of a classified investigation. When asked how it felt to uncover such a secret, Sarah simply said, "Down there, you feel time differently. It's not the past, it's just a story that hasn't finished telling itself." Today, the C-47 rests inside a naval museum, restored but sealed, its cargo hold empty, its history rewritten. And sometimes, when Mark dreams, he swears he can still see the shape of that cylinder glinting in the dark, waiting to be found again. Because the ocean never hides forever. It only keeps the truth until someone is brave enough to dive deep enough to find it.